coming in at number 92, we have Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who, is obviously going to be an incredibly polarizing guy, right? After what he did as a rookie last year, 88 receptions, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. That was just a historic campaign, right? And if this was a top 100 players of 2020 list, he'd have to be towards the top. However, when I'm trying to rank just who are the best players in the NFL right now, who am I most confident in terms of their skills and abilities at their respective positions, I think that there has to be some hesitancy with Jefferson, right? First and foremost, obviously, only playing 16 games, that's not ideal, right? There is a chance that last year was an anomaly and he regresses a little bit in the future. I would say the biggest question I have, though, is obviously what he did last year in Minnesota was great. However, from a defensive game planning perspective, he really was the third option on that Minnesota team, right? Who are you worried about stopping first? 1, it's Dalvin. 2, it's Adam Thielen, right? And maybe that changed a little bit towards the end of the year, and maybe it will change in 2021. However, where I'm not projecting towards the future, I'm talking about right now, I think that we have to bring those things up when it comes to ranking Jefferson, right? However, with that being said, obviously, still phenomenal in terms of his production on the field last year. So let's hop into the film and see just what it is that I think Jefferson does so well that made him so good and special as a rookie. The first thing with Jefferson that jumps off the tape to me is just his athleticism. And, no, he's not necessarily a guy like Tyreek Hill. He ran a 4.43 back at the NFL Combine prior to last year's draft, but he has enough speed and quickness to make you have to respect legitimately every single movement that he has out there on the field, right? And especially when we get into his route running, right? Whether that's a head fake, a stutter step, even just a look off, right? As a defender, you have to respect it, and I really think that that's one thing that makes him incredibly effective, right? You're gonna see he's so able to just quickly stop on a dime and change directions, harkening back to that quickness, that he's just incredibly effective in space, right? And it's so tough to get a read on just what it is that he's exactly trying to do, because it feels like he's always 1 or 2 steps ahead, and his athleticism allows him to compound that even more, right? You just look at some of these routes and he's making defensive backs look silly on really a week in, week out basis, right? Whether it's Dante Jackson out there on an island, or, as you saw previously, say some of those Jaguars defensive backs, right? He's just putting guys in a position where he's making them think that he's running anything but the route he actually is, right? Whether it was some of those slants into, almost corner-like routes, whether it was, that post into a corner, whatever it is, right? A lot of these double moves are so dangerous with Jefferson just due to his speed and quickness. And then another thing that I think he's phenomenal at is his tracking, right? And most of these are just going to be deep balls that I show you guys, but he does a fantastic job at locating the ball, getting his head around, and, adjusting beforehand to the point that everything at the catch point just looks incredibly fluid, right? And that's exactly what you're going to see here. I know as a rookie, for him to haul in 70% of his targets last year, I thought that was quite impressive, and in large part, I would say, a result of this ability, right? To do such a great job at finding the ball in the air, adjusting your body if need be, and then hauling it in. And that'll actually transition us pretty nicely into my next category for Jefferson, which is his body control, right? It's very rare that you see guys come out of the gate as rookies and have this sort of advanced feel for where they're at on the field like Jefferson did, right? And whether it's a toe tap grab like we see there, whether it's some of these high point passes where he has to go up, climb the ladder, maybe like this one where he has to get his hips around and, lean back to grab the ball. He just does a phenomenal job to the point that, as I was saying, that 70% catch percentage looks even more impressive when you consider some of the degrees of difficulty, right? And in that regard, obviously transitioning into his contested catch ability, just one of the better guys in the league, especially, again, as I said, as a rookie, right? It's really tough to look at him and compare him to, say, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, but when you compare him to the rest of his draft class and, where guys are usually at as a rookie, he's one of the best at winning these 50-50 balls at the catch point, whether it's pulling it away from the defender and just, showing off his great strength, whether it's, potentially going up and climbing the ladder and showing off his phenomenal explosiveness and vertical, or on a ball like this where it's just it's just having sticky hands regardless of the fact that you're sandwiched between two defenders. Just did a phenomenal job last season. And even to almost add on top of that, he's great at the catch point, yes, but then he's almost even more dynamic afterwards when it comes to putting a foot in the ground and transitioning from receiver to runner. He remains one of the most effective players in the entire league, I would say, right? He just has this sort of relentless motor about him, and a willingness to take on contact that I would say is pretty unmatched again amongst most young guys. A lot of these players and wide receivers in particular, you see they're labeled kind of divas, right? And they shy away from contact. Well, Jefferson, he's gonna go right at you, and as a cornerback, he's gonna make you want to be the one shying away from contact, because there's just no real fear in his game. And I think in that regard, regardless of whether he was a number 1, a number 2, or a number 3 option, and regardless of whatever he is next season, I really do think that he's primed and ready to be one of the league's top receivers for some time to come. I know typically when I get to this point, I love to say what this player needs to do to continue to rise on my list. With Jefferson, it's very simple, as I said, right? It's continue to do more of the same. Ideally, I would say he kind of wrestles that number 1 wide receiver role away from Thielen, right? He begins attracting the attention of number 1 defensive backs on the opposing side, and then really from there, it's just continuing to prove what you did last year you're able to do against the best in the league. And once we get another season or 2 of that under his belt, he most definitely will be climbing up my list. But with that being said, if you want to see some other guys on my list, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe so you're always in the loop with my future uploads, because for today I'm mic'd up, now I'm mic'ing out. Peace, guys.